Well, welcome. We're glad you could take time to watch this presentation. And just really excited that this evening we have Dr. Bruce Hyde joining us. And I'll be sharing kind of the main content. And then Dr. Hyde will be adding in some commentary and thoughts that are very helpful. First of all, what we're talking tonight is about a concept most of us are very familiar with, taking supplements where we ingest vitamins, antioxidants, and so forth. And we're hoping, based on what we've heard from people or whatever, that it will be beneficial for our body. And it's kind of a guessing game. And often we hear that our body actually doesn't need all of those and they're flushed out of our system, or we take too much, or other various things about those kind of supplements. But it's kind of a guessing game. But tonight we're going to be talking more about something called nutrigenomics, where it's something that we can take that instead of trying to supplement our bodies, it is actually going to the DNA in every one of our cells. And we have about 30 trillion cells in an average body. And so we're activating the DNA in 30 trillion cells, and we're activating thousands of the genes in each of those cells. So the cells, when they're regulated, know what the body needs. And so we don't have to guess. We just turn on the regulators in those 30 trillion cells, and then the body adjusts accordingly to what it needs. There are three main types of processes, pathways in the body that we're going to be talking about. And these three are noted as the main theories of aging and chronic diseases that we have that cause us to age and have various health issues. And there's a quote right here by Dr. David Sinclair. And if you have a chance, you should go to YouTube and type in Dr. David Sinclair about aging. And he has a lot of very interesting things to say. He's working at the Harvard School of Medicine. And he says the only reason we age is that our body's natural repair system has become complacent. So in being able to turn on and off the genes in these various aspects of our body, it can make a big difference in our aging and disease. So those three areas are free radicals, which I'm sure most of you have heard about, mitochondrial issues, which you probably have heard of mitochondria, and then sirtuins, which is kind of a new one to me. But we're going to talk about these three. Going back, the thing that got me interested and involved in this was my wife's history, her story. This is my wife, Terry, and she had a health issue several years ago where the doctors said she basically only had months to live. And there was nothing else that medicine could do. So they said, basically, make the best of the remaining part of your life. And that was about it. So we invited our pastor and elders over, and they had an anointing for her. Our pastor shared this quotation with us, which was very meaningful and inspiring to us. And it's, those who seek healing by prayer should not neglect to make use of the remedial agencies within their reach. It is not a denial of faith to use such remedies as God has provided to alleviate pain and to aid nature in her work of restoration. So we knew that medicine had no answers for her health, but we did believe that there are things in nature, natural remedies and things that God could make use of. And it wasn't a lack of faith to be looking at some of those things. So Terry was doing a lot of research, trying to find some of those types of options. And of course, people were sharing ideas with her and so forth. But she came across this one product. A friend of ours shared it with her. And so she started taking it, a natural health product that was supposed to help different enzymes and so forth. And continuing to go to her doctor. And after a while, the doctor said she was doing so well, she didn't need to come back to him until the issue returned, which it was going to, undoubtedly. But after the second year, when she had some CAT scans and they said there was no more sign of her issue, it was just, to me, mind-boggling. And I had no idea what she was taking. I just knew a friend had recommended it, and that was about it. So it was at that point I was like, oh, and this is a picture of the friend here, the young lady in the middle. This is our son on the right, and he was best friends with this couple in high school, and she had been the one to call my wife and tell her about this. So it was at that point, though, that I was like, what is this product that she was taking that our friend Melody had shared with her? And it was called Protandim, but that's all I knew about it. And so after the amazing things that it had done for her, I decided I was going to do some research. And what I'm sharing with you is basically the research that I came upon as I looked into it. And the question to me is, for what it did for my wife and what I've seen it do for other people, and I want to ask Dr. Hyde this question: is Protandim able to cure diseases? Is it curing this disease and that disease?
Well, the Band-Aid there in the picture helps protect the wound, but the healing properties are all within. In a similar way, a wellness strategy tries to promote the wellness activities that are within. And so we like to make a correlation that when someone gets better, something in particular made that happen. But it'd be more accurate to say that these were aids in helping healing to happen. So we don't make a disease cure claim with wellness products. And it's very important that we not correlate a disease process being cured by a natural supplement. You can only make the cure claim, even though it's not accurate, but you can only make the cure claim in the context of medical practice and the prescribing of pharmaceuticals. And they are also a Band-Aid approach, but that's how things are set up. So if you claim a cure, you're kind of like practicing medicine, and you need a license for that.
Which you can
so
do.
Rather than, so rather than make a cure, we just say we're supporting the healing process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the way I've seen it in my research is kind of like the Band-Aid is just holding the skin together, and what God designed in the cells is actually what's doing the mending of the cells in the skin. And kind of the same way that I'm going to explain here, the Protandim that she was introduced to didn't cure her disease, but it just activated things in her body. So like I mentioned at the beginning, we're talking about activating the 30 trillion cells in our body to do something. So we do want to make this statement that we're not claiming that this cures, diagnoses, or treats or prevents any disease. So going on here, I'm going to talk first of all about the free radical approach. And most of us have heard of free radicals, but I wasn't really familiar with what oxidative stress was. But we see oxidation going on, like with fruit on the counter, it oxidizes until it's totally rotten. We see oxidation on paint on old vehicles where it's oxidized. And we see oxidation in metal when it rusts. But that same kind of thing is happening in our cells. When we have these free radicals bombarding our cells, we end up with cells with oxidative stress. And since our whole life and health starts at the cellular level, we can imagine that, when cells get damaged with oxidative stress, that's not going to result in very good healthy cells or, health in general. So where do we get all those free radicals? Where does that come that causes oxidative stress? Well, we're living in a very toxic world. We have a lot of pollutants in the air. We live near Hanford, which we always, feel like we're downwind from Hanford, getting the fallout from that where we live here. There's radiation from microwaves and cell phones and all those, electronic devices. fumes from gasolines and so forth, chemicals on the grass or on the plants. We also live near orchards, and they're spraying chemicals a lot on those. But also even in the food we eat, we're getting a lot of chemicals and different things there. But when our body even functions, the little mitochondria in the cell, when they're burning food and turning it into energy, the exhaust is also free radicals. So we're getting it from a lot of different sources. And one interesting fact is that 100 years ago, about 1 in every 33 people might at some point in their life get a type of cancer. And now that statistic is about 1 in every 2 to 3, about 1 in every 2.5 people will get cancer. And it's just like our world is becoming more and more toxic. Even people that live a very healthy lifestyle are being affected by a lot of these types of things. So oxidative stress is becoming more and more of an issue. And this is another fact I had no clue about until I started looking at this. But there are over 200 diseases that are related to or caused by oxidative stress. Like I mentioned, the cells in different parts of our body, when they're inundated with oxidative stress, there are going to be issues and problems. And you can look through this list, some of the different systems of the body, a lot of major things that we deal with in life. And we know people with a lot of these things that can be caused by oxidative stress. I work for an eye surgeon, and he told me one day that macular degeneration, glaucoma, those things are all caused by oxidative stress. And I found that very interesting. It was interesting that he told me. But in talking with other doctors also, I've come to understand that there's a lot of issues caused by oxidation. And so they try to fight oxidation with anti-oxidation things. And we've all heard of antioxidants. I had heard of that long before I knew anything about oxidative stress. But that's what antioxidants are for, is to fight that oxidation. But what they're finding is that antioxidant pills are actually becoming known as pro-oxidants, because it's a little chemical thing where they're grabbing free radical, the electrons off the free radical, and then they become a free radical. So they're actually losing the battle, and people that take regular antioxidant pills end up with very high oxidative stress. So it's not very helpful. There are fruits and things that are good in antioxidants. Well, actually, this is a picture of the bag of our cat's food talking about antioxidants, because that term is getting everywhere nowadays. But there are fruits that are really high in antioxidants that are really good for you. For example, blueberries. Most of us have heard about them being high in antioxidant value. A cup of them has about 10,000 antioxidants. The rule of thumb is that one antioxidant can wipe out one free radical. So a cup of blueberries with 10,000 antioxidants would wipe out about 10,000 free radicals. So that's pretty cool. That's good. And like I mentioned, many antioxidants in pills become free radicals themselves, so that doesn't help. The problem is there's about 300 sextillion free radicals in our body every day. And with 30 trillion cells, that equals about 100 billion free radicals per cell in each of our cells every day. So, if we were going to fight that with just eating blueberries, we'd have to eat about $3 million worth a day. Now, blueberries are good. They're good for you, but they're not going to win the battle of free radicals. It's just impossible. So fortunately, we'd all be dead if that was the case. But fortunately, there are antioxidant enzymes in our cells that can eradicate 1 million free radicals per cell for every one of those molecules. And that is how they have, our body has a chance to survive against these onslaught of free radicals. But the problem is, as we age, our body's producing fewer and fewer of those enzymes that we need. It's just the pathways there are just slowing down, kind of like a faucet being gradually turned off. And so about actually almost 40 years ago, some of those enzymes were discovered. And of course, the way science goes is they try to find a drug that can activate it, you know, because once they discovered those enzymes, they go, as people age, we need those more and more. So we need to find a way to make them work better, to activate those enzymes. So they tried different drugs. A lot of them were toxic, very harmful. They tried synthetic enzymes, but the body doesn't deal well with fake things, molecules, and so forth. So those weren't very successful either. So about 15 years ago, a small health company decided they were going to try and find a way to activate those enzymes naturally. And what they found is what became Protandim, because they found several different herbs that you've probably heard of, like turmeric and so forth, but they did nothing by themselves to activate those enzymes. But when they got a specific combination of 5 of those herbs in a specific ratio, it actually did the trick and activated those enzymes. So what the product Protandim is the result of that study, a number of years of study. But then also what they realized, it wasn't just activating those enzymes. What it was really doing was turning on what is called NRF2. And that's a little protein in the cell that is the master regulator of the survival and antioxidant genes. So in our DNA, actually, those genes are regulated. But it's the NRF2 that is starting to diminish and fail as we age to do its job in regulating those. So when this Protandim enters the body, it is getting in the bloodstream. And it's not supplementing the body. Like I said, all it's doing is activating. So it's going from cell to cell throughout the entire body, ringing the doorbell on each cell, because every cell in our body is next to some type of blood vessel, so it can get its food and oxygen and so forth. So as the Protandim is going through the body, it's ringing the doorbell to activate the NRF2 in every single cell. And then the NRF2 is going to the DNA. So the overall result of activating NRF2 in all 30 trillion cells in our body, the study found that Protandim can reduce oxidative stress in the body by 40 to 70% in just 30 days. Now that is unheard of, because regular antioxidants are actually increasing oxidation. Blueberries and fruit and so forth, they're good for you and they can help a little bit, but it's kind of like throwing a little Dixie cup of water on a fire if your house is burning down. It's much better to take a big hose and spray the water, or have a sprinkling system turning on. And so by activating every single cell in your body to produce these enzymes, its overall effect is to have a major decrease in your oxidative stress. So this study was published in the Wall Street Journal. Well, first of all, I'm sorry. Here are the ingredients: milk thistle, bacopa, turmeric, ashwagandha, and green tea. Those are the 5 herbs that are in Protandim. So we do recommend, if somebody does take Protandim, not to take any of these herbs like on your food or whatever for about 4 hours, so they don't mess up that synergistic effect. And this chart just shows each of those 5 herbs by themselves are not able to activate those enzymes, but when they're put together, it's what's called a synergy. So it's an 1,800% increase in activating those than the sum of all those parts by itself. So we'll talk a little bit more about synergy of other things as we go along as well, but just so you understand the concept, it's kind of like a chemical explosion when you get those specific ratio together. So anyway, as I was just saying, that study was put into the Wall Street Journal, published there. An ABC Primetime Investigative Report was a program that was aired, and they went around the country looking at things that sounded too good to be true, scams, snake oil, all kinds of things that were getting people to spend money on something that didn't work. And so they had this investigative report. And when they heard this, this claim of this study that a body's oxidative stress could be reduced by at least 40% in 30 days, they came and found the doctor that had done a lot of that research, and they did an investigative report. The result of that report was that the lead investigator, the gentleman you see in this picture, John Quinones, his oxidative stress was reduced by 45% in only 2 weeks. They didn't want to take the whole month to see if it would be reduced. He came back in 2 weeks, and it was reduced by 45%. So if you'd like to see that investigative report, we can send you a link, or you can just go to nrf2biohacker.com, and you can look at that ABC News video there, nrf2biohacker.com. It's a website that provides that for you. So immediately when that was aired, actually in 2005, the little company that had just barely invented Protandim was inundated by over $5 million worth of orders, and they were not able to fulfill those. But they started ramping up production until about 9 months later, they were able to distribute Protandim to pharmacies and drugstores all across the United States, like Walgreens and CSV pharmacies or whatever. So it got on the shelves. But at the same time, a lot of universities and health organizations also saw that program, and they started doing a lot of research also on Protandim, spending millions of dollars to do studies. For example, Louisiana State University did a study where they made Protandim into a powder and put it in a lotion on skin. And their study showed that it reduced skin cancers dramatically. Ohio State University study, they studied bypass stents and showed how it decreased the inflammation in those stents that causes those to fill back up with fats and cause heart attacks to return again. American Heart Association published a study. National Institute of Aging showed that mice lived longer. So those studies were all published. A lot of them are peer-reviewed studies that can be found on a website called pubmed.gov. Just a few years ago, Washington State University, which is near where we live, did a study on NRF2, and they said the health effects of NRF2 may well become the most extraordinary therapeutic and preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. And that's pretty strong findings for their study. I know with what it did for my wife, that was an extraordinary therapeutic result. And we want to give God the credit for what he does in our cells. When I saw this, I saw the preventative side, and I decided I wanted to take it as a preventative because, the first symptom of half of all people with heart disease is sudden death. You don't feel it coming on. You don't realize, cancers and different things are developing in your body until it's too late. So I didn't feel like I had any major issues, but I started taking this for a preventative. If you want to see some of the studies, like I said, you can go to pubmed.gov. That's where doctors usually go. Or you can go to like scholar.google, and you can type in things like if you want to know if something's related to oxidative stress, that if you reduce oxidative stress, it might be beneficial. This was just a sample. I typed in oxidative stress and diabetes, and there were a lot of results there. So you can go look at some of these things if you'd like to do some of your own research. Multiple Sclerosis Journal published a $50 million study that was done by a drug company. They were comparing 3 different drugs with Protandim in a treatment for multiple sclerosis. And, it's interesting. Sometimes people say, well, Protandim is just a supplement. But this was seen by this drug company that was spending $50 million to see that, compare it with some of these major drugs. And they actually found that Protandim was the most potent inducer and most suited as a therapeutic strategy. So like I mentioned, NRF2 is actually regulating over 500 genes in the DNA. So this is just a snippet of about 40 of the genes when the NRF2 isn't working the way it should be. You can see some are really high and some are really low. When NRF2 is regulating the way it's designed to, this is the way those genes are supposed to look. And so you can kind of compare them. There are some that are overexpressing and you don't want them to, like this one that has been identified as a fibrotic scar tissue formation gene. You don't want that overexpressing. Those enzymes that are able to eliminate free radicals, those were underexpressing, and so you want to bring them up. For example, one of the enzymes is called glutathione, and they've tried to make fake glutathione and glutathione pills and so forth, but you need your body to produce its own glutathione. When the protandim is activating the NRF2, it causes the body to increase glutathione production by 300%. So if you look into what glutathione is and does, that's incredible. So Dr. Hyde, now that I've kind of basically run through this section on oxidative stress and NRF2, I'd like to have you give some commentary and thoughts about that.
Okay, as I was thinking while you were presenting, the thought came in my mind about certain parts of our world where pollution controls are not seemingly required. I remember guess it was 21 years ago, I was in Beijing, and you could not see 1,000 feet in front of you because of the air pollution so bad. And I remember looking up into the sky, and you couldn't see the sky because the pollution was so heavy. You would look up into dirty air. And I remember one night when we could see the stars, and we could see this really deep, dark blue night sky before it became completely dark. And we exclaimed how the air was clear. So other parts of the world have very strict pollution controls. So here in America, for example, we rarely see smog, except for in certain areas like maybe Southern California. And partly that's because of the way air movement occurs there. But these are just some simple illustrations of air quality and how that makes an impact on human health, because that's very well known, the correlation. And so we see in more advanced societies that there is tighter and tighter pollution controls that protect the well-being of society. And the body is designed in a similar way. We have a lot of pollution that is occurring, but we have mechanisms for dealing with it so that the body stays clean. And in the NRF2 pathway, the end result is the synthesis of these enzymes that literally clean up all this free radical irritation. And in the air, we might call it smog, but in the body, we call it free radicals. Okay. And I like to give the example of burning wood or burning gas, from which you will have smoke or exhaust. We know these are very irritating substances, and they are released into the air and dissipate, and we're not really that worried about them because the dilution factor makes them really not seemingly problematic. Of course, when it gets more concentrated, we could describe smog. And but the problem in our body is that when these free radicals are released, it's not being released into the air, but it's being released into intracellular fluid. But what's so amazing about these enzymes is the enzymes can go around and clean up at that very phenomenal rate of 1 million free radicals per second per enzyme in every cell of the body. So your body can actually get ahead of this really mind-boggling problem. Now, no one goes around counting dust particles from smoke or from exhaust, but obviously it's a lot. And similarly, it's a lot in our body. And so we need a mechanism that can, in a sense, work like a vacuum cleaner to just go around sucking up all of this irritating substance. And probably the environment is not the number one source of these irritants. Probably the number one source is our metabolism. We eat food and we get energy and nutrition from the food, but then what follows is these free radicals. And so what's really exciting about this NRF2 pathway is we have different products that have the NRF2 technology that target the cleaning of these cells by reducing that free radical load. And these free radicals are irritating. They cause inflammation and they cause damage to the cell membranes and the cell organelles. So reducing that negative impact on the cell has a corresponding positive wellness benefit. Now, what I'd like to share is that in order to metabolize, one of our goals is to get energy. And this is going to come up in what is presented to follow. But there's three dominant energy molecules in the body. One is called ATP, another one is called NAD, and the third one is called FAD. And this company, LifeVantage, that we work with, actually has three different kinds of Protandim. The first one is activating the process of clearing out the free radical load. Okay, so metabolism is already occurring, energy is already being produced, free radicals already being generated, and with the NRF2 technology, we can go in and reduce that toxic burden. But the next step in Protandim is to start increasing energy. Now that we have a way to clean up the end result, the free radical, now we're ready to increase energy. And the number one molecule in the body for delivering energy for the life process is ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate. The second most important one is called NAD, and that is nicotinamide adenosine dinucleotide, I think is exactly how it's pronounced. And this is the second energy delivering molecule in the body. And the third one is FAD, which we don't have a tool at the moment to activate. I'm thinking that's coming, but I don't know that. So what we're seeing is a very foundational basis for wellness. And a little later on, I'll describe some more details along these lines.
All right, thank you. So yeah, back to the concept between taking and making. And in the process, like I was saying, when the NRF2 is getting to each cell, it's kind of starting like a domino effect, where you just ring the doorbell, that's going to turn on another signal, which turns on the NRF2, or like Dr. Hyde was saying, some other things that we're going to turn on. And then that goes to the DNA and turns on those hundreds or even up to thousands of genes. And then those turn on the things like the enzymes and the various things in the body, which then in turn, affect different functions of our body. So we'll talk a little bit more about some of those. This is just a picture of my sister-in-law and brother in Hezekiah's tunnel. And since we've been sharing this with people, we have had so many great examples, and I know Dr. Hyde shares some as well, about how it has helped so many people. And for example, my sister-in-law has a major health issue and she could hardly walk. And later she sent me this text when they were in Jerusalem for a 3-week tour. And she said, I have to tell you that the Protandim has kicked in. My energy is incredible. We're in Jerusalem and I'm beating everyone up the hills. And that was pretty incredible. My brother was so impressed. And he was just telling me recently that they have that cane hanging up, her old cane hanging up in their house, kind of as a memory. So there are some other applications of NRF2 activation. Like I mentioned, that ABC investigative report came out in 2005. So in the years since, they got it into drugstores across the country. They were in drugstores for about 4 or 5 years, but unfortunately, when you walk into a store, unless you're looking for something specific, just seeing a bottle on the shelf You have no idea what it is, what it does. It did not do very well in the stores. So they ended up turning to direct distributors so they could explain it like I'm explaining it to you. But in the years since, they've also been doing a lot more research. And so there are some other applications besides just the main Protandim that affects the cells. So one of those is, after seeing the Louisiana State University study, they realized, yes, that is a good idea for us to make something that can be used on the skin, get the NRF2 activation in the skin. Because the skin is the largest organ in our body, it faces a lot of radiation from the sun and all the other things that hit our skin first. So they made a series of some skincare products and hand cream and so forth. These pictures here are some examples of some of the things it does. I'm not going to go into that. We really don't have time tonight, and it could be a whole lecture by itself on what it can do for the skin. The guy in the right here looks like he's had a stroke, but actually he just put the skincare on one side of his face for a couple weeks and took a picture of the difference in the wrinkles and so forth in his skin. Another NRF2 activation is they put it into a shampoo and conditioner. When my wife was going through what she did and she was doing a lot of research, she was telling me, you shouldn't be using those shampoos because all those parabens and sulfates and chemicals are getting absorbed into your scalp just right away. I mean, it's just very quickly gets absorbed into your bloodstream. And I was like, oh, whatever, it's just the cheapest I can get down at the store. And I wasn't really thinking too much about it until I started doing this research. And then I realized, yeah, I really don't want all those chemicals in my body. And these hair products are really healthy, and they work great too. Some people struggle to find a good natural product that works well. The scalp serum is pretty cool because besides the NRF2, it has some other ingredients that actually help stimulate hair follicle health. So if hair follicles are still alive, if there's still some action in those, it can actually help stimulate those to work again. So people with hair follicles that still have some hope find that their hair looks thicker and filling in gaps and so forth. So that's pretty cool. So another NRF2 activation that they have come across is this. It's kind of a powdered drink, and it helps with activation for the brain. There's what's called a blood-brain barrier. And maybe Dr. Hyde, you can kind of explain that just a little bit and how this Axio can actually help the brain and the neurons and so forth.
Okay, so the NRF2 technology with the tablet, the little blue bottle, Protandim NRF2, typically that one works quick enough, but not necessarily immediately with your perception. And that product has a mild benefit on the nervous system, but because of the blood-brain barrier, it's not really having a very effective penetration. That is obvious, at least in a quick manner. So the Axio product is still a NRF2 technology, and it actually gets through to the nervous system very quickly. People will often feel and observe benefits in less than an hour. And anything that's neuro is going to be positively impacted. So you've got your central nervous system, you've got your brain stem, and then your spinal cord, and then you've got all these peripheral nerves coming off of the spinal cord. And actually all of that is your nervous system, all the way out to your skin, where you have sensations of various kinds. But whether we would call it a neuropathy or a psychosis or dementia or pain, chronic pain, mood, anxiety, depression, all of these different neurological processes that have different types of expression are actually positively impacted by targeting the neurons and reducing that irritation that occurs because of these free radicals. Also in the nervous system, the NRF2 pathway can be activated. That activation brings forward these enzymes, and these enzymes in turn clean up the free radical. Less irritation in the neuron means a quieter, calmer, more purposeful functioning neuron. And that has immense clinical benefit. We observe that in countless ways. I will say though that the skincare, it's called True Science, again with LifeVantage, their True Science line is both skincare and hair care. And those products also can work very rapidly. You can feel relief as you apply it, and you can see benefit quickly within hours to days, but you're not waiting a whole month to see whether or not it's going to be helping you. So I'm super impressed with the skincare line. You can see my hair there, got a lot of light on it, but I'm actually using the shampoo, the True Science shampoo product. And I don't know, what do you think?
That's good.
So I don't know if I answered all your questions there, Gary, but yeah, these technologies are very dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this Axio drink, well, number one, it doesn't have any sugar in it. It's sweetened with stevia. And there are three flavors there on the left that are actually do have caffeine in them. The two on the right, red raspberry and grapefruit, do not. So you just pour it into like 16 to 20 ounces of water and shake it or stir it really good and drink that. And like Dr. Hyde said, you can get some noticeable results fairly quickly. It helps reduce brain fog. It helps you think better. For people that are driving, it helps them stay alert. Some people kind of equate it to like an energy drink, although, it's kind of instead of Red Bull or whatever other kind of energy drinks people have, but this is kind of a healthy type of energy for your brain. There are a few interesting things I just want to share about it, and you can see these pictures here. The one on the left was a young person that had trouble kind of concentrating and thinking, and after drinking the Axio for I think a week or two, there was a really noticeable difference in their cognition and their ability to write neatly. And the same thing happened there on the right. The picture on the left was this young person scribbling, and they could not stay in the lines of the pictures. And the one on the right, after that time, they were able to as well. So there's been a lot of kind of anecdotal evidence like that. But a neuroscientist recently was introduced to Protandim, Dr. Fannin, and he said people are sharing supplements and things with him all the time. And, it's like, oh, great, here's another one. But somebody was sharing with him the science about Protandim, and he found it interesting. So he decided, you know what, I'm going to see if this really works. So he took a 15-year-old young man with some severe ADD, and he did some brain mapping, which you can see on the left. And Dr. Fannin said he wouldn't explain, exactly what all those red and blue lines meant, but that meant it was some serious brain activity going on in this kid's brain. He gave him Axio, the drink, and the NRF2 activation that we've talked about, and NRF1, which we'll share in just a moment. He gave those to him for 12 days. And then he did the brain map on the right. And he was stunned. He said he's never seen anything like this, what it's doing at the cellular level to make those cells function the way they're supposed to. But he said not only, did he get this brain map that just was astounding, but the teachers at the boys' school didn't know he was doing this test. But they started commenting to the parents that the young man was starting to behave, starting to be respectful, starting to get his work done. It was just like, wow, what's going on with this child, his behavior and everything. But Dr. Fannin said he was so convinced by what he saw here that not only was he going to be taking these products himself, but he was also going to be a distributor to share it with people, because he said people have to know about this. They also found that animals have NRF2 pathways in their cells. So they developed a product especially for dogs called Protandim. Although dogs and horses and cows and chickens, well, I don't know about chickens, but anyway, mammals can also take the human variety of NRF2. And it has made a huge difference. We've had some personal experience with friends and so forth in what it's done for their dogs. Their cells turn over at a faster rate. As we know, a dog has, 7 years to a human year. So a lot of times you can see things more quickly in an animal, the results. And an animal does not have a placebo effect. And a veterinarian friend that I know said that when this was introduced to him, he thought, yeah, people can have a placebo effect. Yeah, I feel better, blah, 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 whatever. But he said animals don't. So as long as they'll eat it, they don't know it's supposed to make them feel better. So he had this little old dog that could barely walk. And so he said, I'm going to give that to this little dog as a study to see if it really works. So he gave it to him, took some video, and this dog could just barely walk. A couple weeks later, that dog was running around, jumping, and he was sold. He was like, this stuff really does work. And so he not only, again, took it himself, but has also become a distributor to share it with other people. And you can go to YouTube and just type in Protandim and dogs or Protandim and horses, and there's a lot of really cool videos that you can see about the changes that it's done for animals. So that was the free radical part with the NRF2. These next two are going to be a lot quicker. We've spent most of the time talking about the free radicals and so forth. But mitochondria are a little organelle in the cell that, like Dr. Hyde was talking about, are the place where the energy is produced in the mitochondria. He talked about the ATP and so forth, but they're like the engine of our cells. So Dr. Hyde, if you want to talk just a little bit about the mitochondria, and also what they have found was that there was an NRF1 pathway that actually activates mitochondrial growth, helps the genes that affect the mitochondria, helps strengthen them, and it helps actually make more mitochondria. So yeah, Dr. Hyde, if you want to just talk a little bit about this NRF1 pathway.
Sure. So again, the role of mitochondria is really to produce energy, and the energy is predominantly in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And when you have more energy, it doesn't mean that you are now going to be hyperactive. It means that you have more intrinsic baseline energy to be more purposeful from within and from without, at the level of your brain, at the level of your heart, at the level of your muscles, throughout your whole body. And I like to point out how increased energy actually promotes better sleep, which seems to be a little bit kind of like backwards. You would think you would be able to sleep less with more energy. But it's important to understand that sleep is a very active time for restoration. And restoration is like the renewing and the restoring and the recharging of your body, so that you wake up in the morning ready to go through another day with health and strength and vigor. So this is the benefit of the NRF1, to actually increase your intrinsic energy supply. So instead of depending on some stimulant or some sugar fix that puts you on that roller coaster ride, these things are actually not needed. People spend more money on their roller coaster ride, and they could actually get rid of that expense and put it into how to help the body make energy, so to speak, and you will be way ahead, not only with less cost but with better health. and even longer life, because one of the benefits of the NRF2 Protandim is increased apoptosis, which helps the cells that need to go away do just that, instead of hanging around and potentially causing more problems. So apoptosis is directly correlated with cancer. And so increasing apoptosis correlates with decreased cancer. So that's a really important aspect. Again, we're not treating a disease, but we're supporting the normal functions of the body that work to protect you away from disease and toward wellness.
Yeah, so again, just like the NRF2 activator, additional study, when they found this NRF1 pathway, they were able to also find 5 herbs that you can see here at the bottom that actually could activate that pathway in a synergistic way, just like the NRF2 did. And so you have, again, 30 trillion cells. If they can have the mitochondria increased and strengthened, is going to make a difference in your whole body. So, and then the third way is through the sirtuins, and this is actually the latest and most only about a month or so old since they have produced that. But of course, they've spent a number of years studying into it. But the sirtuins are what are known as longevity genes, and there's a lot of different value. You can see like the SIRT1 gene here, talking about the benefits in a lot of different areas of the body as well there. But in order to activate the sirtuins, we need something that Dr. Hyde's already mentioned, and that is a molecule called NAD. So Dr. Hyde, did you want to talk just a little briefly about the NAD?
Oh, I like that slide there. So NAD, again, stands for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. And this is another energy delivery molecule in the body. And it is required for the sirtuin activity. The sirtuins are proteins that have not food value function, but physiologic function in the body. And what that means is they support the life process in a lot of different ways. 3 of the sirtuins are at the nucleus level. 3 of them are in the cytoplasm level, and another 3 are in the mitochondria. And as I was reading up on the sirtuins that particularly involve the mitochondria, it's directly correlated with better immune health and less insulin resistance. So that has a lot to do with decreasing diabetes risk. There was one more, I'm just trying to remember it. Hang on a second. So one was the immune health. The other is neurodegeneration. Okay. What is the most common aspect of neurodegeneration that affects the elderly? That would be dementia. So even though we're not, again, treating a disease, we are actually protecting the body through these pathways from these areas of dysfunction should those pathways not be properly supported. Now, in the past, I'd like to just say, in the past, during the Dark Ages, we never really knew what was going on in the body. They didn't really know about the nervous system and the circulatory system and the different organs of the body. But they learned that certain things would treat certain symptoms. And so healthcare was based on treating your symptoms with different potions and maybe magic. But it became what was called the practice of medicine. You know, try this and try that. It might help you. It might have side effects that are worse than the benefits. Okay. And interestingly enough, in healthcare, we're doing a lot of symptom treatment still. But actually, the type of presentation we're showing you tonight is demonstrating a little bit of the knowledge that has been learned on how your body functions at the cellular level, at the molecular level, at the genetic level, at the level of different enzyme molecules, different energy molecules. And so now we're actually way past the surface symptoms. We're getting down to the root activators of the life process and the active factors involved. And the ability to modulate that activity toward wellness. And what correlates to that is less surface symptoms. And so this is very, very important. And actually, we know that as you incorporate all three of these protandims, you get a synergistic benefit that exceeds any one of the individual ones. So we have right here a combination for supporting wellness at a level not previously realized possible.
All right, thank you. And yeah, like the others, the NRF1 and the NRF2 with the enzymes and so forth, they diminish over time. And again, with the sirtuins, they also diminish. So there are a couple ways that you can actually activate those sirtuins. One is by caloric restriction, which is dropping down to about 400 calories a day. And that's okay to do on occasion, but if you're going to do it more than just, on a rare occasion, you end up needing medical supervision so you don't damage your body. But the other way you can do that is by activating the NAD. So with this new synergizer, again, just made of natural herbs, you can activate the NAD by 100%. Caloric restriction is increasing it by 94%. There are some supplements of NAD out there on the market, but they are only increasing the NAD by 2% because they're, again, trying to supplement the body, add it to the body. Whereas this synergizer is actually going to 30 trillion cells and turning the NAD on in each of those cells. So these are the 4 herbs that are in the NAD synergizer in specific ratios, again, to cause that synergistic effect. So yeah, we've talked kind of about what the NAD does and the sirtuin activity. This picture kind of shows some of the benefits. Dr. Hyde's talked a little bit about the benefits of those, but it can increase your mental focus and concentration. And I would say that, with the NRF1 and NRF2, those are things you may feel after, a few weeks or months or whatever, as your body starts to reverse the damage of oxidative stress. You don't necessarily feel it right away, but many people with this NAD activation, they feel it right away. Within maybe a day or two, start to notice just really thinking more clearly, a positive mood, more energy as well. I have a friend that I work with, a coworker, that I shared it with her, and it really boosted her energy, and she shared it with another friend. And yeah, they're all just really excited about this because she noticed her boyfriend, especially, his mood was very enhanced compared to what it had been. And she goes, "Who are you?" Just because he was so much more cheerful coming home after a long day of hard work. So the results of NAD are something that are usually more noticeable by people than the others. These are, again, just dealing with all the cells in the body, so it's not like necessarily a quick response like you might get with the Axio drink getting quickly to the brain, but the NAD does have some of that as well. So like Dr. Hyde mentioned, these are 3 very powerful synergizers on their own. The NRF2 synergizing for free radical, cleansing the body of the free radicals. The NRF1 which they discovered later, the pathway, how to activate that, helps strengthen and increase the mitochondria. And the sirtuins now can be activated with the NAD. So on their own, they do some great things. But as Dr. Hyde said, when they're combined, and if you take all three of these, all three of them have different herbs, so they don't conflict with each other at all. But they have found that when you take all three at the same time, and you want to do this like in the morning with food, it will actually have an even more synergistic effect because they all kind of over-relate just a little bit. But the combination, this is a study that was just done with taking just a sample of 2 genes from each category, like 2 of the NRF2 genes, and they found that just with taking the NRF2 synergizer by itself, it had a great increase in the activity of that gene. For the example, the first one there, you see a 40% increase. But when you took all 3, you're getting a 78% increase, which overall is an 83% overall boost. I'm not going to go through all these, but you can see some incredible increase when you take the 3 of them together, an overall synergy besides their individual areas. So it's pretty incredible. So Dr. Hyde, we talked just a little bit briefly about, how quickly people see results. Sometimes people don't notice things, just like you don't notice a heart attack, a heart disease coming up until it's too late, or, your cholesterol or whatever. We don't necessarily feel those things. So with like NRF2, we don't necessarily feel what it's doing, and we start noticing our body actually taking care of some of those things. If you have any thoughts on this, and also kind of about detoxing, because on a rare occasion, somebody has kind of a cleansing, detoxing effect.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that these products actually work quite quickly, as we stated earlier. And I would say most of the time, the use of these products are not correlated with a negative effect that is perceived. But that doesn't mean that a negative perceived effect can't occur. Sometimes people will have a little stomach indigestion, or they will have maybe some looser stools, or they might have some headache, or very common symptoms that are transient. Most of the time people don't realize any problems. These products actually don't interfere with any medication that you might be taking. They're best taken with food, best swallowed quickly, so it gets right to your stomach. But I would just say that if you ever had any effect that you were questioning, that you can always talk to the person who is sharing this information with you. And it's possible to resource with our team that are involved in sharing this to maybe further answer any questions.
Great. And sometimes people base this only on if they feel better or different. But is that, Dr. Hyde, is it something that, if you don't feel anything, like with the NRF2 over the course of a couple months, does that mean it's not working for you?
Well, this is based on science. Okay, I could say it's based on law, which means it's predictable. In other words, the pathway will be activated, which will correspond with the benefits of those pathways being activated. But that's at a level that is not at the feeling level or at the symptom level. So yeah, you don't feel these working necessarily, but I will tell you that if you use the skincare, you will feel it working. And if you use the Axio, you will see it working fairly quick. And as it relates to the Protandim NAD, the saying is that you will realize a benefit in the next 3 to 72 hours. That's pretty fast. So typically with natural products, their onset of action is delayed and you're wondering if it's actually doing anything. With these products, the onset of action can be very quick and you can realize benefits often very soon, but that varies from person to person. And a lot of times the body is doing it's doing a prioritization of need. And that results in important activities occurring in the order of importance. And so something that's important that may be not felt by you might be addressed and you're benefiting by it, yet you're not perceiving any benefit. Your body is set up to operate in a very smart way. And it knows how to do problem solving in an order of priority, as I mentioned. So knowing that the science is there, knowing that these pathways are there in every cell of your body, and knowing that you're activating them for a wellness benefit, first of all, gives you that reassurance that all this goodness is happening. And as you persevere with it, you will know. The example is given of a person climbing up a hill or a mountain. And, you know, when you're 1/3 of the way up, you don't quite yet have the grand view. But you can't start at the bottom and get to the top in the first day. It's a 3-day hike, okay? And so that's like taking Protandim for 1 month. And the second month, you're higher up on that hill, but you're still not at that grand view vista point. That's the second month on the Protandim NRF2. The example is given. It's on the third bottle, the third month, that typically we realize the peak potential of the product. That's where you get to see the grand view. And for some people, that peak occurs later, even 6 months out. But typically within the first month, you know, you're getting a better view. The second month, even a better view. Probably most of the time by the third month, the grand view. And like we said earlier, some of these other pathways are even faster. So
yeah,
you should be
I've
excited.
noticed that, especially with the NRF2, that you know, you built up all this oxidative stress for years, and people sometimes expect it to immediately have changed and taken care of everything just within that first month. But there's a reversal of that oxidative stress, and your body needs time to start dealing with some of these issues. And we see people with things resolving, like you said, 3 to 6 months, maybe even a year. And we recommend people write them down at the beginning, because later they'll realize, oh, such and such is gone. I don't have that issue anymore, because the body has gradually dealt with that type of thing. Okay, so we do want to make a little warning, because this is very important. You know, sometimes people do go to Amazon or eBay or whatever and see some there, but a majority of those products they have found in studies are actually fake. And our company is very careful in not allowing real distributors to sell their products there. So if you do find some there, it's either a counterfeit or it's somebody that's selling it illegally. So there's no quality control there. You want to buy it directly through the company. So just a quick warning. So we do recommend people live a healthy lifestyle, but we are living in a very toxic world. And these products do help 100% of anyone that takes them to reduce oxidative stress, to increase their mitochondria strength, and to activate their NAD. And this company has a commitment that everything is all natural, non-GMO, no artificial colors, sweeteners, and things like that. They have very high quality standards with every product. If you'd like some more information, we do have a great Facebook page. You can ask one of us, connect with me or whoever invited you to watch this, and we can get you connected with this biohacking page. It's got a lot of great stuff. And usually after we share this, there's 3 types of people. Usually we have people that want to take this themselves because they realize how beneficial it is. But also a lot of times we think of somebody we know or love that has some health issues, and we'd love to have them live healthier and longer. And we would be happy to connect with them. but also some people do decide they would like to join us as a distributor, and we don't push, the distributor type thing. We just want to make sure people know it's available, because if somebody knows there are a lot of people they'd like to share it with and they want to become a distributor or possibly have a little side job or whatever, that opportunity is there, and you can talk with us about that. And one way to share is we try to have this Zoom most Sundays at 5. We're not going to the next couple of weeks because of conflicts and holidays and so forth, but we put out the word when we're going to do that, and you can always ask us when we're going to do that. And most of the time I like to work it out so Dr. Hyde can join me when we do it. Can't always work, but you can invite somebody to join us, whether they're on the East Coast or West Coast or wherever. And we also have some presentations in our home for those of you that might live in the Walla Walla area. Sometimes people want to hear it more than once because we've just kind of flown over the surface really quickly. Sometimes there's a lot of new terms or thoughts or whatever, and it's something you may want to hear again. So you're welcome to join us again in the future. The reason my wife Terry and I, this Terry picture down here, share it is because of the opportunity we have had to see how it has helped so many people over the last year and a half. Since I realized what this did, I decided I had to share it because there was no distributor in our area, and I was like, I have to tell people about this because this is really incredible. And Sandy, this lady on the left, is the result of us sharing with a person, a friend. She shared it with her sister Sandy in Tennessee and sent some to her, and it saved her life. And so it's those kind of experiences we have over and over that just really motivate us to keep sharing it. I could share it with like 10 people a month. That'd be like 120 in a year. But if I do have a team of people that join and help share it, 10 people, we could share it with 1,200 people in a year. And it is spreading across the country and in other countries of the world as well. And for business reasons, for us personally, it helps pay for our own products, helps pay off my wife's medical bills. It's giving my wife a chance to work from home, and for me, hopefully soon, to be able to in the next year or two. And we enjoyed, this is a picture of us going on a mission trip a few years ago. We'd love to go on more, be able to get out of work and be able to afford to do that and prepare for retirement. So there are some good side reasons that people want to do it. This is, it's a publicly traded company, so these numbers have to be published. They have to be transparent. So these are average incomes that people can make if you work diligently with it for 2 to 5 years. I know, I didn't get this kind of raise at work, but by diligently working now for a couple of years, it's helped us a lot on the side. So the way, if you would like to order a product, that you can do that is to type in the link of the person who invited you. For us, our link is, this is a screenshot here of the web page. Our link is thehagys.lifevantage.com. And you just want to confirm that it comes up with the name of your distributor. And you click on the word shop if you want to order. It brings up the different products. And there's some other things we haven't talked about. And it will, if you click on the product, it will give more of an explanation as well if you want to look up some of those things. Become a distributor, you click on join us and fill that out. But if you do, it's a good idea to talk to somebody that's already a distributor to explain things and discuss what's best to do. So here is our link, thehagys.lifevantage.com. And if you have any questions, we're happy for you to ask. So our email address is joemkeh, joemkeh, @gmail.com. Our phone number is 509-876-4348, and we're happy if you want to call and talk about more specifics or whatever, questions. So I want to thank you for joining us for this presentation. And we're happy that you've taken some time to look at this, and I believe that you'll find it could be a very beneficial thing for you or some of your loved ones. So I want to wish you all the best. Take care, and God bless. Have a good night.